Is this car ugly, or is it in fact purposeful and aggressive? What do you reckon? Take another look. I think I fall into the it's not a looker camp, but you don't need me to tell you about the way this car looks. You can see that for yourself. However, I do think this Honda Civic Type R is the best 300 horsepower-ish front-wheel drive hot hatch you can buy. It has been for a couple of years, and now Honda has updated it. In this video, we'll talk about the revisions Honda has made. We'll drive the car quickly. We'll compare it to a very talented rival. And by the end of the video, you'll know if the Honda Civic Type R is still at the top of the tree. You'll need to be a proper Type R geek to identify the facelifted Civic Type R. The best way is to look out for these little whiskers here. They mark out the revised model. Now, if you didn't like the car's styling before, that won't have changed with this new version, will it? Although, there is now the new Sportline model. It looks a little bit subtler. It's got a lower rear wing, and that helps a bit.
There's also a new limited edition model with track day tyres and less weight, but all 20 cars have already been sold out. The model we're testing today is the Civic Type R GT. The GT upgrade costs £2,000, taking the price of this car to £34,820, and adds things like dual zone climate control and wireless phone charging. There have been minor revisions to the suspension, although the powertrain is unchanged. You still get 320 horsepower from a 2-litre turbo engine, enough for 0 to 62 in 5.8 seconds and 169 miles per hour flat out.
In here, you now get this Alcantara trimmed steering wheel, which feels great now, maybe not so great in 10 years. Ugh. The infotainment system is a bit so-so, but it works and it's easier to use on the move now because of these new shortcut buttons. The overall dashboard design is not that pretty, is it really? But what really matters is that the seating position is spot on. The driver's seat goes really low down, wheel comes out to meet you. Yeah, it's perfect. And look, it's now got a metal teardrop shaped gear lever. Anyone who's driven an NSXR or an Integra Type R will tell you a fast Honda needs one of those. The changes Honda has made beneath the skin of this car, to the powertrain, to the chassis, are very, very minor. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is a very good thing, because there was absolutely nothing wrong with the pre-facelift car in that regard. It was fantastic to drive, and that's absolutely true of this new one as well. It's one of those rare cars, very, very rare cars, that you jump in and you feel at one with straight away, and you start driving it quickly, immediately. Not just quickly though, you start driving it well, right away. There's no adjustment phase whatsoever. You start using the grip, you start trusting the front axle, you start using the differential to drag you out of a corner. Immediately, it all just comes together and you find yourself driving the car quickly and driving it skillfully. It's such an impressive trait in any performance car, let alone, you know, a sort of £30,000 hot hatch. I think it's staggering. So what's so good about it? The chassis is so supple and composed. It deals with a bumpy road as well as any hot hatch I've driven recently. It's also got exceptional body control, really good steering, crisp, accurate, but also communicative. So talkative actually, you get a really good sense of what the front axle is up to. The car's got lots of balance, really nice neutral cornering balance. It's agile, strong brakes. The chassis is just exquisite. I don't know what they could do to improve it really. And then you've got a really good powertrain as well. Stunning gear shift. It's not just a cool teardrop gear lever. The gear shift itself is fantastic. There's a really good rev match that you can just turn off if you don't want it on. And the engine is super strong. It's a shame it's not a really high revving, normally aspirated engine like we used to get in Type Rs, but those days are gone, aren't they? At least this one is characterful. It's really muscular. It sounds pretty good. It still revs to 7,000. It's as good as these turbocharged 2-litre 4-cylinder engines get. In fact, I have just one frustration with this Civic Type R, and it's the drive modes. All the time that I've been talking to you, I've just been in comfort mode, because on a slightly bumpy road, the suspension is at its best in the softer damper setting, in comfort. The moment you put it up into sport mode, you get firmer dampers, and then the moment you go into plus R mode, you get rock solid dampers that are just too much for the road. It's a shame that you can't have the lovely supple comfort dampers with the sharper throttle response, with the more vocal engine sound, because that would just strike the perfect balance for UK roads. Actually, it's a fairly minor point, the drive mode criticism. In the end, you just drive it in comfort mode and you don't really notice that you've got softer throttle response or a slightly quieter soundtrack, because you're just enjoying the strength of the engine and the chassis so much.
It's a mighty performance car, no question. The pre-facelift Civic Type R has already seen off the Renault Sport Megane in one of these PistonHeads videos, and now, to keep its place at the top of the hot hatch pile, this revised model will have to dispatch a different rival.
In an ideal world, I'd be stood next to a Ford Focus RS right now, but in their wisdom, Ford have decided not to do one this time around. So instead, we've got the next best thing, the ST. But that's okay, because the ST is actually a really good hot hatch.
Like the Honda, it's a front-wheel drive 5-door hatchback with a 2-litre turbo engine. It's down on power compared to the Civic with 280 horsepower, but don't think that makes it more affordable. In fact, it starts at £33,260, making it more expensive than an entry-level Civic Type R. It'll hit 60 miles per hour in 5.7 seconds and run on to 155. It's got a clever electronically controlled limited slip differential in the front axle to get that power down to the road.
The Ford's cabin is quite a sombre place to sit. It's quite dark. There's not a great deal in here to tell me that I'm in the sporty one. I've got an ST badge here and red accents in the gear lever, and that's about it. However, a bit like the Honda's interior, the basics are right. So you've got a good seating position and excellent seats, just like the Honda's. These Ford seats are really supportive. This car's infotainment system is better than the Type R's. Overall, the quality is okay. Unremarkable in here, but all the important stuff works well. This Focus ST is a bit annoying in the same way that Civic Type R is a bit annoying, and it's to do with the drive modes. The default mode is normal, there's also a slippery mode, and then you're into sport and then racetrack. And there's no configurable mode, so if you want the very supple dampers, you need to be in normal mode. The moment you switch up into sport mode, because you want the sharper throttle response, the slightly meatier steering, the dampers go really firm. That's fine when the roads are super smooth, but when they're bumpy, as they so often are here in the UK, it's not ideal. Still, it's not so crashy in sport mode that you can't use that setting on our roads. I'm in sport mode now. There's just about enough pliancy to deal with a bumpy road surface. In comfort mode, the ride is actually pretty good. The chassis in this car is very impressive. Probably as impressive actually as the Honda's. It's got loads of balance, tons of grip, body control is really strong. When you turn into a corner, it actually feels fantastic. You can feel the side of the car loading up. It feels poised, it's agile. That electronically controlled limited slip differential works really well. It just drags you away from corners and gives the car bundles of traction. So the chassis is really good. What I don't like so much is the steering. It's got this springy, rubbery sensation to it. In the dry, it's not a huge problem. You can still trust the grip at the front end, but in the wet or on a slightly greasy road, it just means you have no faith in the front end whatsoever. It really undermines your confidence in the car. That's a big difference between this car and that Honda. On paper, this Ford is quite a long way down on power compared to the Honda, and you do feel it. It doesn't pull with the same intensity, but nonetheless, the engine is really good. It's responsive, it's got good energy, it even sounds pretty sporty. Hear that? It's probably synthesized, a few pops and cracks when you shift up a gear. Yeah, it's a slightly contrived soundtrack, but I don't mind it. It's a very, very good car, this Focus ST. Fun to drive, it's really fast, but it's undermined for me by the steering. I'm just not really getting on with it. That Honda, you jump in it and you feel at one with the car straight away. This Ford steering means it takes a little bit too long to get accustomed to it. So which car wins this PistonHeads twin test? You can probably work that one out, can't you?
Well, hang on. There's less in it than you might think. On a dry, flowing road, the Focus ST is spectacularly good to drive. It feels poised, balanced and adjustable. It's way more entertaining to drive than any previous Focus ST. Perhaps that's why there isn't going to be an RS. Even so, the Honda Civic Type R is the most complete car of the two. It's the one I would choose to jump into whatever the road and whatever the weather. And it's still the best car of its type. Thanks for watching this video. Remember to subscribe to the PistonHeads YouTube channel and make sure you give this video a thumbs up.